How long could memory alone hold the threads together? The rhythmic clatter of the wooden loom echoed under the stilt house, a sound as familiar to Anong as her own heartbeat. Yet, arriving back from Bangkok after years away, the sound felt different, thinner, almost fragile against the oppressive Isan heat and the thick layer of dust coating everything in the workshop. Skeins of silk, once vibrant jewels hanging in the sun, now seemed muted, waiting for hands that were no longer there. Her older brother, Chachai, looked up from the loom, his face etched with a familiar stubbornness now overlaid with raw grief. Their parents were gone, taken by a swift illness just weeks apart, leaving behind this legacy of silk and silence. The air between the siblings crackled with unspoken words, a chasm carved by time, distance, and now shared loss. Anong, he acknowledged, his voice rough. He didn't stand, didn't offer an embrace. His knuckles were white where he gripped the shuttle. "Here," she replied, using the respectful term for older brother, the formality feeling like another layer of dust between them. She placed her modern backpack, starkly out of place, near a basket spilling over with dull, undyed silk. Nearby, Elder Mali, her face a roadmap of wrinkles and wisdom, worked silently at her own smaller loom. She'd been weaving with their parents since before Anong was born, a fixture as constant as the monsoon rains. Malay offered Anong a small, knowing nod, her eyes holding reservoirs of unspoken understanding. The workshop felt suspended in time, the earthy smell of raw silk, the faint sweetness of dormant dye plants, the intricate half-finished patterns on the looms mirroring designs. Anong remembered from childhood. But something was wrong. The silence between the clatter was too heavy, the stacks of finished silks too high, gathering dust instead of heading to market. Her Bangkok-trained business sense screamed inefficiency, decay. This wasn't just grief. It was stagnation. Days bled into a week. Anong tried to settle back into the rhythm of village life, a cadence she'd eagerly escaped for the thrumming pulse of the city. She helped Mali sort threads, swept the workshop floor, listened to the cicada's relentless drone. Chachai remained withdrawn, immersed in the loom, weaving the same complex traditional patterns their father had favoured, beautiful, intricate, and utterly unsellable in the quantities needed to sustain them. Her unease solidified into cold dread when she finally tackled the account books. Tucked beneath a stack of faded invoices in their parents' small office space, she found the overdue bills, the loan statements, the polite but firm letters from suppliers. The numbers swam before her eyes, telling a story of dwindling orders, rising costs, and a debt far larger than she could have imagined. The rhythmic clatter from the workshop suddenly sounded like a countdown clock. That same afternoon, a sleek black car, impossibly clean against the dusty village road, pulled up outside. A man in a sharp suit emerged, Mr. Thanom. He introduced himself with smooth urban politeness, offering condolences before swiftly pivoting. He spoke of appreciating local crafts, of wanting to support families like theirs. He mentioned the land value, the potential for development. He didn't make a direct offer, not yet, but the implication hung heavy in the humid air. A vulture circling, smelling decay. Chachai stood stiffly beside Anong, his jaw tight, offering curt, non-committal answers before retreating back to the sanctuary of his loom. The encounter galvanized Anong. Logic dictated action. That evening, under the single flickering bulb in their shared living space above the workshop, she spread the account books on the low wooden table. "Here, we need to talk. Seriously." She laid out the facts. The debt, the lack of sales, the inefficiency of producing only complex labor-intensive pieces for a shrinking niche market. She spoke of online platforms, simpler designs targeting urban buyers, collaborations with Bangkok boutiques she knew from her design studies. Her voice was crisp, business-like, presenting solutions. Chachai stared stonily at the intricate floral pattern on the woven floor mat. "Father's way was good enough," he mumbled, his voice low and obstinate. "It's not good enough anymore. We're drowning higher. Look at these bills." Anong's frustration flared, sharp and hot. "Those patterns take weeks. We need volume, things people will actually buy now, not just museum pieces." "This is not Bangkok fancy stuff," he retorted, finally looking up, his eyes flashing with resentment. "This is our blood, our parents' legacy. You left. You don't understand." "Blood doesn't pay the bills." The words were out before she could stop them, harsh and wounding. Chachai flinched as if struck. He stood abruptly, the wooden stool scraping against the floor. "I understand enough," he said, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "I understand you want to throw away everything they built." He turned and stalked out onto the veranda, leaving Anong alone with the damning numbers and the heavy weight of his accusation. She slumped back, breathing heavily. Logic had failed. Her carefully constructed arguments had shattered against the wall of his grief and stubbornness. She looked at the papers, then out towards the dark shape of her brother silhouetted against the moonlit rice paddies. Mully's earlier words drifted back to her. Sometimes the tightest knot needs the gentlest hand. Anong knew she had pulled too hard, tried to force the knot instead of understanding its structure. She had seen his resistance, but she hadn't truly seen him, the weight he carried, the fear beneath the anger. She needed a different approach. The memory of workshops she'd attended in Bangkok surfaced, communication strategies, understanding underlying emotions. It felt clinical applied to her own brother, but her pragmatic arguments had only deepened the rift. She had to try something else. The next few days, Anong changed her approach. She didn't bring up the finances or her business plans. Instead, she spent more time in the workshop, quietly observing, helping Mully prepare the natural dyes. Indigo, ebony fruit, lac beetles, the earthy scents filling the air. She watched Chachai work, his hands moving with an inherited grace over the threads, his brow furrowed in concentration. One afternoon, while they were sorting newly dyed skeins of silk, the vibrant pinks and golds glowing richly in the sunlight, she decided to try. She picked up a thread the colour of a monk's robe, a deep saffron. This was Mother's favourite colour for the sin borders, wasn't it? Chachai grunted non-committally, his focus on untangling a stubborn knot. Anong persisted gently. "The Laik-Alam pattern you're weaving now," she said, gesturing towards his loom. "It's incredibly complex. Father spent months perfecting that variation, didn't he?" He paused, his hands stilling. "Years," he corrected quietly. "He said it held the spirit of the rice fields." Anong nodded slowly, keeping her voice soft. "It's beautiful here, truly. But what worries you most about trying something simpler, alongside these masterpieces?" She held her breath, bracing for deflection or anger. This was the first technique she recalled, finding the reason, asking about the worry itself. Chachai didn't answer immediately. He meticulously finished untangling the knot, his gaze distant. Then, haltingly, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "It feels like forgetting them. If we stop weaving their patterns, stop doing things their way, it's like saying they weren't good enough, like erasing them." He finally looked at her, his eyes filled not with anger but with a profound, aching vulnerability. "I don't want to dishonour them, Nong. I don't want to lose this. It's all we have left of them." Anong's chest tightened. It wasn't just stubbornness. It was fear. Fear of loss, fear of betrayal, fear tangled inextricably with grief. She didn't offer solutions, didn't argue. She simply met his gaze and nodded. "I understand here. It feels like a heavy weight protecting all this." Acknowledging the feeling, the validity of his fear, seemed more important than anything else right now. A tiny thread of connection, fragile but real, seemed to form between them in the shared silence, shimmering like the silk threads in the sun. The knot hadn't loosened, but perhaps, just perhaps, she had found the right end of the thread to begin gently pulling. The fragile truce held for a few days. Anong started sketching, not the bold, modern graphics she'd initially envisioned, but patterns inspired by temple murals, local flowers, the flow of the Moon River, designs that echoed tradition but were simpler, faster to weave. She kept the sketchbook mostly to herself, waiting for the right moment, sensing Chachai wasn't ready. The pressure didn't wait. Mr. Thanom returned, his politeness even smoother, his hints less subtle. He brought brochures for small, modern houses in the nearby town, spoke about guaranteed income from selling the land for a potential resort development. A secure future, kun Chachai, kun Anong. Less worry than this unpredictable craft. Anong watched her brother during the meeting. He remained mostly silent, but his hands clenched and unclenched by his sides. His gaze kept flicking towards the looms, then away, as if caught between the past and a future he couldn't bear to imagine. Thanom's shiny shoes seemed to desecrate the worn wooden floorboards of their home. After Thanom left, Leaving behind his glossy brochures and a lingering scent of expensive cologne, the tension in the workshop was palpable. Chachai attacked the loom with a furious energy, the shuttle flying back and forth with aggressive speed. Later that evening, Anong found him sitting alone on the veranda, staring out at the darkness. She sat down beside him, leaving space between them. "That man makes you uncomfortable, doesn't he?" she said softly, focusing on the emotion she'd observed. Method 2. Chachai didn't look at her. "He sees land," he muttered. "He doesn't see the threads." "He represents a kind of pressure, though," Anong continued gently. "It must be hard facing that, especially now, with everything else." She let the silence stretch, allowing him space. He sighed, a long, ragged sound. "It feels like the riverbank crumbling, bit by bit." He finally turned towards her, a flicker of trust in his eyes replacing the earlier defensiveness. "He makes it sound so easy. Just sell, erase everything." "But you don't want to," Anong stated quietly. "No," he whispered, "but Nong, the bills." His voice trailed off, the unspoken fear hanging heavy between them. This conversation felt different. By acknowledging his discomfort, his emotional reaction to Thanom, she had bypassed his usual defenses. He wasn't arguing about patterns, he was sharing his fear. Taking a calculated risk, Anong fetched her sketchbook. She opened it to a page showing a simple, elegant design, stylized lotus buds arranged in a flowing geometric pattern. "I was thinking, what if we could show the skill, the quality of our silk, in a way that more people could appreciate? Not replacing Father's masterpieces, but adding something accessible." Method 4, reframing. Chachai looked at the sketch, his expression unreadable. He traced the lotus bud with a calloused finger. "It's different." "Inspired by the carvings at Wat Phra Narai," Anong explained quickly. "It uses traditional weaving techniques, just simplified, faster to produce. Maybe for cushion covers, scarves, things for city boutiques." He didn't answer, but he didn't push the sketchbook away either. He continued staring at the lotus design, a thoughtful, troubled expression on his face. Anong felt a fragile tendril of hope. Maybe reframing change, not as abandonment, but as adaptation for survival, could resonate. Progress wasn't linear. Days later, Chachai pointed out a technical flaw in how Anong had depicted the thread joins in another sketch. "This wouldn't hold," he stated flatly, a hint of "I told you so" in his tone. Anong's hope faltered. Was he just looking for reasons to object? But then, that evening, she saw him experimenting on a small backstrap loom Malay sometimes used, trying out the lotus bud motif from her sketch. He worked slowly, awkwardly at first, his brow furrowed in intense concentration. When he saw Anong watching, he stopped abruptly, looking flustered, almost guilty. He didn't speak of it, and neither did she, but it was a crack, a definite crack in the wall of resistance. The real test came unexpectedly. Anong received an email from a high-end boutique hotel in Bangkok she'd speculatively contacted weeks ago. They were impressed by photos she'd sent of her parents' intricate work, but also intrigued by her mention of developing contemporary designs rooted in Isan tradition. They wanted to commission a series of silk wall panels for their new lobby renovation, a significant order, potentially life-saving. The catch: the design needed approval within 2 weeks, and it had to be a blend of traditional feel with a modern aesthetic. It was exactly the kind of project Anong had dreamed of, but it required Chachai's full cooperation, his mastery of the looms applied to something new. Simultaneously, as if sensing a shift in the currents, Mr. Thanam reappeared. This time he laid a formal written offer on the table. A generous sum for the land and workshop, enough to clear their debts and live comfortably for years. But the deadline was sharp, except within 1 week. "Progress waits for no one. Kun Anong, kun Chachai," he'd said, his smile unwavering. The air in the small house thickened with unspoken tension. Sell or weave, security or heritage, the past or an uncertain future. That night, Anong laid everything out on the table. Thanom's offer, the hotel commission email, her final sketches for the panels. Designs incorporating the lotus motif Chachai had experimented with, blended with geometric elements inspired by traditional mudme patterns. That night, Anong laid everything out on the table. Thanom's offer, the hotel commission email, her final sketches for the panels, designs incorporating the lotus motif Chachai had experimented with, blended the lugs. She explained the commission's potential, the risks, the tight deadline. She didn't push, didn't persuade with business logic this time. She looked directly at her brother, whose face was pale and strained in the lamplight. Thanom's offer means money here. No more debt, no more worrying about selling silk. But it means this place, she gestured around the room encompassing the workshop below, is gone. The looms fall silent. She paused, letting the weight of that sink in. The hotel commission, it's a risk. It's hard work. It demands we work together, try something new. It might fail, but it keeps the looms working. It keeps us weaving. She took a deep breath, gathering all the empathy she'd cultivated over the past weeks. I believe we can do this here. I believe in your skill, in our heritage. But this is our family's heart, woven through generations. She looked towards the looms visible through the open floorboards. You know the looms, the threads, better than anyone. I can design, I can find markets, but you make the silk speak. She pushed the sketches and the offer gently towards him. I can't make this choice for you, sell and have security, or weave and take a chance on preserving this in a new way. She employed the final strategy, granting autonomy, placing the power firmly in his hands. Method 5, giving choice. What path do you choose for us here? Chachai stared at the papers, his gaze flicking between Thanom's crisp legal document and Ong's hand-drawn sketches. He looked towards the corner where their parents' portrait hung, then down at his own hands, hands that knew the language of silk intimately. The silence stretched, thick with the ghosts of their parents, the clatter of looms past, and the terrifying uncertainty of the future. Mali sat quietly in the corner, her presence a calm anchor in the swirling emotions. Anong watched him, her heart pounding. She had done all she could. She had tried to understand his fear, acknowledged his pain, asked questions to make him think, reframed the challenge, and now offered him the choice, the responsibility. Finally, Chachai slowly reached out, his fingers bypassing Thanom's offer. He picked up Anong's main sketch for the wall panel. His eyes scanned it intently, tracing the lines, the interplay of traditional and modern elements. He frowned, not in dismissal, but in deep concentration. He pointed to a specific junction where a geometric pattern met the flowing lotus stems. Here, he said, his voice raspy, if we use the chock technique, the interlocking thread, it will make the lotus seem like it's truly growing out of the background, stronger, more alive. Anong leaned forward, her breath catching. He wasn't just looking, he was seeing it, engaging with it, improving it with his deep knowledge. He looked up, meeting her eyes directly. The fear was still there, but something else flickered alongside it. A spark of the artisan's pride, a glimmer of hesitant hope. It's bold, Nong. Risky. Yes, Anong agreed softly, it is. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the breath of a man standing on a precipice. He looked at the sketch again, then at Anong, then at Malay, who offered the slightest, almost imperceptible nod. Okay, Chachai said, the word quiet but firm. Okay, we try. He tapped the sketch again. But if we do this, we do it right. The best silk, the truest colours. Relief washed over Anong, so potent it almost brought tears to her eyes. She simply nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Yes, here, we do it right. The final scene, days later, wasn't one of